What happens when your world is against you? What do you do when something you've protected all your life is now after you? Batman is no stranger to deadly foes, but this time, things are different. This time, the law is after him. After Bruce Wayne. The GCPD finds Bruce clutching the dead body of Vesper Fairchild in Wayne Manor. But did he do it? Did Bruce shoot Vesper mercilessly in the back 4 times? Let's enter the brooding and gloomy Wayne Manor and explore the super amazing and thrilling Batman Fugitive Saga. Batman, number 600. The scene of the crime. The Batmobile speeds through the streets of Gotham erratically and somewhat recklessly, reflecting its driver's turmoil. And although in the driver's seat, Batman's mind and heart are focused elsewhere. Focused on what just happened an hour ago. You need our help, Bruce. So, talk to us, says Dick, appealing to his adoptive father with all the emotion he can muster. They're in the Batcave. Robin and Batgirl stand behind him, while the Oracle, aka Barbara Gordon, watches the entire thing virtually and waits for a response. The Bat takes a long pause, scowls, and opens the Batmobile's door as he says, "I'm gonna leave now, and I think you'd all better stay away from me for the foreseeable future." Nightwing is visibly angry. When he was accused of a murder, Batman put him through hell. He even had to come up with a new secret identity. So now, today, at this moment, when he's the only one standing against the entire world and the evidence, Batman just decides to walk away? How can you do that? Screams Nightwing. The Bat finally straightens up. Something is different about his posture this time. There's no Bruce Wayne, he says, shocking everyone. Batman's distant attitude and lack of care seem to stem from a far greater issue than everyone had previously anticipated. Bruce Wayne is a mask I wear, that I've been wearing since I was a child, but it's become a liability. So, it's over, says the Bat. He continues to get in the Batmobile, demanding everyone to continue with their assigned jobs. No, us, you and me. If there's no Bruce Wayne, then who is Dick Grayson, the adopted son of who raised me? Can you answer that? Demands Nightwing, his voice slightly quivering. For the first time, the Bat lowers his cowl, perhaps in shame, and then a split second later continues leaving. Disbelief grows into anger inside Nightwing, and soon that anger evolves into rage. Nightwing demands an answer, and Batman says, "It's over." It's the final nail in the coffin for Dick, as he punches Batman right across his face. Batman simply looks up, saying that Dick gets one hit for free. But Nightwing isn't done yet as he throws an uppercut, catching the Dark Knight off guard. Emotions have taken over as Batman and Nightwing start trading blows. Dick lunges at Batman, who attempts an escape using his grapple gun, but Nightwing catches the Bat's cape midair and throws him toward the bottom of the Batcave. Both land with a thud as Dick continues trying to land a punch on Batman, and he continues evading expertly. Nightwing screams, "Acknowledge me, damn it, Bruce!" as he lunges again. Something irks the Bat this time as he catches Nightwing with a right hook followed by a grisly uppercut. Payback. He doesn't like being called Bruce anymore. He really has given up on being Bruce Wayne. "Stop calling me that," Batman growls. But the fight isn't over yet. Nightwing tries to sweep at the Bat's legs, who continues evading and backing away from Dick. Rage continues to grow inside Nightwing as he gets careless with each subsequent punch, until he makes a mistake. Batman evades and Nightwing shatters the memorial glass containing the late Jason Todd's Robin costume. Everybody recoils in horror as sorrow takes over Nightwing's face. Batman watches a broken Nightwing depart from the Batcave, leaving Batgirl and Robin in his wake to clean up the mess. Batman drives away without anyone noticing, with more weight on his heart than ever before. As the Batmobile turns onto railway tracks from asphalt, the rattling jolts Batman back to reality. He's heading towards an abandoned tunnel. Nothing will stand in the way anymore, he thinks. The dark of the tunnel reminded him of the gloomy and unlit Wayne Manor when he'd entered it for the first time today, after his escape from GCPD custody. It was calm. He'd remember everything, even the first time he found Vesper's body. Shot in the back 4 times, Bruce had found Vesper in a pool of her own blood, without any shoes and long gone. The image and every other memory he holds close to his heart haunts him as he makes his way to the Batcave. The frivolous misunderstandings, the messy fights, his mistakes, the past catching up to him, and most of all, the mistakes he made in his family. I hope you're enjoying the video. Please leave a like and hit that subscribe button. It may be a small click for you, but it'll help us tremendously in bringing you more content like this one. And now, let's continue. Batman ponders how he was lost in his thoughts when he was suddenly confronted by his family as he drives deeper into the dark tunnel. The headlights were the only thing to guide him around each corner. It was heartbreaking when Tim demanded a confession from him. Demanded he deny the allegation that he didn't commit the crime, that Bruce didn't kill Vesper. The memories once again take over as he hears himself scream, "Oh, I see. Is that what's going on here, then? The Bat growls and receives mixed responses. It's only Nightwing that still seems to vehemently believe that Bruce is innocent. It's clear that they're divided on the murder as Batman slowly folds his hands in defense while everybody offers their side of the story. Batman takes solace in Barbara's investigation. She had done brilliantly in his absence, finding every piece of evidence and keeping his family together and his kids safe. She didn't know it yet, but the Bat had helped her further in her pursuit of the truth. And she'd helped him as well. Barbara had managed to find Vesper's hard drive and uncover her investigation into Batman. Thousands of interviews and tons of recordings, all in an attempt to uncover his true identity. But Barbara had also found something more sinister. Vesper's notes and recordings had been altered with some parts erased. He knew about it because he'd been the one to remove any reference to Batman, but they'd been altered again by someone else, altered to frame him even more, to sow doubt against him in his family. Nothing will stand in the way anymore, he thinks to himself as the Batmobile screeches to a halt outside a watertight bulkhead door in the dark, gloomy tunnel. It's his new temporary base of operations, courtesy of Alfred. Batman considers Alfred an ally for a moment and then quickly shakes the thought off. He spends only a moment in the new hideout and then makes his way to the roof and jumps off into the night. Bruce Wayne was away inside, and there are no more of those. The Bat is known to be ruthless, but there's something more sinister about his demeanor tonight, something more deadly. Having given up Bruce Wayne, his alter ego, Batman leaps toward a perp holding a woman at gunpoint in the middle of the street. Batman knocks the perp out with a single strike, and he's gone as fast as he'd arrived. The woman he saved? She looks on with the same terrified look as she watches Batman fade into the shadows of the night. Batman, Gotham Knights, number 27. Positive ID. While the Bat family's been working hard to prove Bruce's innocence, Batman's been working hard to eradicate crime. Harder than usual. It's the middle of the night in Gotham as a masked goon with an Uzi is swiftly punched in the head and then kicked to the ground on a rooftop by the Bat. His partners in crime run while shooting back at Batman, who pursues them without a single scratch from the bullets. "The guy's damn bulletproof!" screams one of them as he continues shooting at the Dark Knight while running away from him. They jump down and run faster, seemingly safe as the Bat is nowhere to be seen, until a large shadow looms above them and lands on them in an instant. Both of them are knocked out instantly, but rage still bellows inside the Caped Crusader as he frowns and raises his arm to punch the unconscious man. But a mysterious hand stops him. It's Clark. Batman loosens up and Superman lets go of his arm. None of them utter a word as the heavy silence seems to mimic the heaviness they both feel. "I have this under control," growls Batman with rage. "Is that a fact?" asks Clark calmly as he reveals the bullet shell casings he holds in his hand. Batman doesn't have a new bulletproof suit. It was Superman catching every bullet shot at him earlier. Batman jumps off the roof as Superman drops the shell casings to the ground and follows him. Superman flies alongside Batman, who's grappling his way through the middle of Gotham, gloom taking over his face and silence taking over his soul. Clark breaks the silence and says, "I'm not going to ask you if you did it, if you murdered Vesper Fairchild. I know you didn't." Nothing but silence as he watches Batman glide away and then land on a nearby rooftop. Superman continues, I do have a question for you though. Why aren't you trying to clear your name?" Back at the Batcave, Alfred is busy tidying up when he comes across a newspaper with the headline, "Murder Suspect Bruce Wayne, Now at Large." Visibly angry at the headlines, he crumples up the paper and throws it in the shredder. The paper hits something, and Alfred looks inside. There's a huge stack of papers. A file. Fear, surprise, and horror flood Alfred's face with each passing moment as he picks up the papers. Bruce Wayne files. Journal confidential. Reads the first page. Irrelevant. Destroy having been scribbled hastily beside it in red color. Back in Gotham, Batman is perched on a rooftop near the docks with Superman beside him. Batman uses night vision to spy on some thugs in a warehouse at the docks that are smuggling guns. Superman repeats his question to Batman and presses him on why he wouldn't clear his name, and the Bat finally replies, "I have no name to clear," as he jumps off the roof and swings toward the warehouse. Batman enters through the glass window with a loud crash and every goon with a gun starts firing. The Bat ducks for cover and pops a small smoke pellet that engulfs the entire warehouse. The smoke this time, however, is toxic, and every goon that comes into contact with it starts coughing. Their bosses, however, manage to escape in a Humvee and speed down the highway. Their escape, though, is short-lived when the Man of Steel appears in front of the Humvee and lifts it up with a single hand. Back at the warehouse, the Dark Knight makes quick work of the remaining incapacitated thugs until one of them manages to flee. Batman uses his grapple gun to knock him off balance, and the perp lands on his face with a brutal thud. The Bat approaches the thug menacingly, who breaks into tears. The goon apparently wasn't even supposed to be a part of this operation. He cries as Batman lifts his arm to punch him, who then stops and straightens up, Clark stands directly behind him. Batman knows he was about to cross the line, and so he decides to leave without giving Superman a second look. This is how he usually acts, and Superman is well aware of it. The Bat says he never needed Clark's help as he shoots his grapple gun at a nearby building. "I know you never want my help, but that's never stopped me from offering it now, has it? That's just my nature," says Superman from behind. The Bat has had enough of it and is almost about to leave when, in a split second, Superman appears in front of him, now looking him in the eyes, dead on. "What about yours?" demands Clark. "Where's all this excessive violence coming from? And what do you mean by saying you have no name to clear?" he continues. Batman grapples away, and for a split second Clark wonders if Bruce really thinks he can escape Superman, but then he spots him perched on a nearby street light as police approaches the crime scene. He flies toward Batman and continues to press him on what he said earlier. Back at the Batcave, Alfred is still holding Bruce's journal, debating whether he should take a look, maybe take a peek. Birds of Prey, number 41, Felony Matters. Black Canary stands with her arms flailing in disbelief as she realizes Barbara Gordon is asking her to rob a bank. Robbing Vesta's laptop from a sealed-off apartment was one thing, but robbing a bank? Barbara explains that they need access to Vesper's locker and appeals to Dinah's good side. The Black Canary, aka Dinah, finally gives in, and Barbara informs her that they start the next morning. A few hours later, Barbara, aka the Oracle, and Dinah are preparing for the bank heist. The Oracle searches the bank's employee database for someone who matches Black Canary's height and weight. And it's not long before they come across Clarissa Wysock, someone who fits their requirements perfectly. Soon, Clarissa has a postman knocking at her door, delivering a package containing plane tickets and hotel reservations. The next moment, her phone rings, and Oracle pretends to be a representative of Zesty Cola. And apparently Clarissa is the winner of their Tahiti getaway. She informs Clarissa that she's won the competition and gets $100,000 in cash for the vacation. The only catch, she has to leave this morning. Black Canary is highly skeptical and doesn't believe that anybody would fall for such vain tricks. Her skepticism soon fades away while she hears Clarissa screaming on the phone and calling a cab within the next 5 minutes. As the real Clarissa leaves for Tahiti, Dinah dresses up as her and fills in for her at the bank, dressed in a long overcoat and pretending to be suffering from a cold. Nobody suspects a thing as Dinah makes her way to Clarissa's cabin and passes the time until lunch. A few hours have passed and Dinah is bored of sitting around and doing nothing. She contacts Barbara to kill some time, who's busy cross-referencing Vesper's notebooks and the text in her laptop. She's analyzing keystrokes and fingerprints to find any discrepancies, and so far she's found nothing. Not a single trace of text being rewritten, deleted, or changed. No one's this perfect, they both wonder, as Dinah gets ready for the heist. It's lunchtime. Dinah makes her way to the lockers. She now converses with Barbara over the radio, who asks her to shine the light she gave her on the lockers. It's an ultraviolet light that should pick up fingerprints, Vesper's fingerprints. Within seconds, Barbara has results, thanks to her sophisticated print-matching algorithm. It's box A339. Vesper's all over it. The Oracle confidently claims, and Dinah proceeds to use the skeleton key on it. It opens without a hitch. Dinah rummages through Vesper's belongings. She finds bonds, love letters, and then finally hits the jackpot. CDs. She's about to pocket them when she hears, "Clarissa, what are you doing in here alone?" asks Clarissa's manager suspiciously. The jig is over, and Dinah is well aware of it. She removes and throws her wig at the manager, revealing her blonde hair underneath it, as she quickly exits the locker area in the basement, brushing off a security guard as she climbs the stairs. She jumps over the guardrails and into the bank teller's area as she reaches the top. Dinah then faces the bulletproof glass window and lets out tiny screams. The glass shatters like ice, and Dinah is already on the street before all of it can hit the ground. GCPD officers arrive at the scene of the crime as Dinah quickly makes her way underground into the subway. Officers chase after her, but are at a loss when they can't find any sign of her as soon as they reach the bottom. Dinah hangs from the ceiling, watching the two cops look for her. An hour later, Dinah returns to the hideout, panting and worn out, where she finds Barbara speaking to someone over the phone. Dinah simply hands over the discs she stole and returns home with a sigh of relief. As Barbara goes over the discs, she's finally found something substantial. The files on Vesper's hard drive are quite different from the ones Black Canary uncovered this afternoon. She's joined by Nightwing, and she explains to him that whoever framed Bruce for the murder didn't know about the deposit box from which the discs were discovered. The files on Vesper's hard drive were significantly altered to reveal Batman's secret identity as a sideshow to the murder. They were lucky to have recovered the hard drives before the GCPD. Nightwing finally straightens up. He knew Batman was innocent. He was the only one who trusted Bruce without a shadow of doubt, and now he finally had proof. Batman number 601, Turning the Town Red, Part 1. Terrified screams and panting echo in an abandoned building in a remote part of Gotham as the smell of gasoline fumes makes the air dense and pungent. A man in a corporate suit is tied to a chair, bleeding from his nose as a mysterious fire-wielding masked figure looms over him. His hand, covered in flames, eerily wavers inches away from the terrified man. And then, it finally happens. The mysterious figure rests his burning hand on the man's shoulder and ignites him like a firework as he walks away. The man starts screaming, and the pain in his voice grows to immeasurable levels as the mysterious man reaches the exit of the building. Yeah, scream. Go ahead, because no one can hear you. Soon all of Gotham will hear nothing but screams, he exclaims as he exits the flames and then through a hole in the fence with a no trespassing sign hanging in the background. Batman, meanwhile, is driving back to his hideout, pleased that it's been a quiet night. But this could be the quiet before a huge storm, and the Bat is wary of the same. Alfred is busy going over Bruce's journal he'd found earlier that reads, "At this point, he must make his decisions, not because of his supporters, but in spite of them. He alone knows what lengths are too far to protect his mission." Batman knows he is more than just a man in a mask. He's become a legend, a symbol, a force of nature without equal. Alfred is baffled by Batman's word choices he's made when formatting the text. He fails to notice Batman, who looms over him in the background. "What do you think you're doing?" says Batman, without the usual respect for Alfred in his voice. It takes a second for Alfred to come to his senses, and then he proceeds to confess that he's been reading Bruce's journal, which he found in the shredder. "Why?" the Bat asks coldly, and Alfred's head slumps as he tells him about his concerns, how his recent decisions, like his escape from the law or giving up Bruce Wayne, have Alfred concerned. And after what he's read in the journal, Alfred's concern has only grown further. The loyal butler continues expressing his concerns, something he's withheld for months since Vesper's murder, something that he's held back in favor of his duties toward Bruce, but he can't hold back anymore. "Stop," growls the Bat as he continues. "Those were Bruce Wayne's journals, not mine. I won't discuss them further." But Alfred continues, looking down at the journal, pointing out that the writing style is quite different from Bruce's usual style. Then he looks up. The Bat is long gone. Detective Comics number 768, Purity, Part 1. Two members of the Lucky Hand Triad share a smoke break as a winged creature swoops in carrying a duffel bag. The creature hides behind the two men, listening in on their conversation about £9 whereabouts, and mysteriously grabs a can of drain cleaner from the bag. On the opposite side of the town, in an abandoned building, £9 is selling a batch of heroin to a prospective buyer. The buyer stands in the shadows and is skeptical of the purity, especially after £9's exaggerated claims. "Pay or play, man," £9 says, having had enough of the buyer, who reluctantly agrees and hands over the cash. £9 smiles and the two part ways. Leslie Tompkins, Batman's godmother, is in her clinic, attending to Gabriella, a victim of domestic abuse. Leslie clearly wants to fix more than just Gabriella's bruises and wounds, as she suggests calling the cops. But Gabriella's too smart, and so is Leslie. They both know that police taking action might be a long shot, and even if they did, Ricky, her husband, would only come back angrier if he was arrested. Leslie's finished patching her up and suggests community shelters, clearly grasping at straws. Gabriella sighs, clearly touched by the doctor's concerns, but reminds her that single girls have a rough time in shelters. She grabs her huge jacket on the way out in an attempt to hide her injuries. Leslie reminds her to come back in a few days to get the stitches removed, hoping that she can offer more help then. The doctor looks to the left, then the right, and when the coast seems clear, asks the Bat to step out from behind the curtains. Batman might be stealthy, but Leslie is his godmother. There's rarely anything hidden from her. The Bat places the junkie on a table as Leslie begins examining him, a victim of a bad batch of heroin. Batman turns around and looks out of the window as Leslie suspects him of leaving. "Stay for a while," says Leslie as the Bat continues to stare out of the window. On the same night, in another part of Gotham, David Said is busy prepping heroin he bought from £9 in his makeshift laboratory. David is vying to be the new knight for Checkmate, an intelligence agency and a branch of Task Force X. The organization works with a hierarchy similar to chess pieces. Kings and queens lead while bishops oversee missions. Knights carry out the missions while rooks plan them, and pawns act as support whenever needed. David's queen insists that he maintain constant contact through a camera pointed directly at him. Things heat up as David stops replying, and the queen grows angrier by the second. "I'm working here. I'd rather not inhale this stuff if it's all the same to you," screams David at the camera, which is followed by a long pause. The queen finally breaks the silence, reminding David to keep his voice down, and he apologizes. He then reports about the sample he acquired, and the queen insists that it'll be picked up by a courier, despite David having the equipment to analyze it himself. Moments later, there's a knock on the door, and the queen ends the transmission, suspecting it to be the courier. David approaches the door with his gun drawn. Back at Leslie's clinic, Batman is busy planning his investigation into the bad batch of heroin as Leslie informs him about the state of the patient he brought in. Still looking out the window, he spots people walking into the clinic one after the other. "It never ends," Leslie says as Batman offers his help. Leslie does need help, not from Batman, but from Bruce Wayne to pay her clinic's bills and to get supplies. For the first time in weeks, there's a hint of Bruce behind the mask as Batman grabs her bills and walks out of the clinic. Back at the GCPD, Detective Montoya and Alan ponder over the Vesper Fairchild murder case, which has now been handed to the FBI as Bruce Wayne has fled the country in the eyes of the law. Crispus Allen is still not convinced that Bruce has fled the country as he goes over the case files again and again. He seems to have a lead, as he explains to Renee that it was the butler who helped him escape, and it was Alfred who paid off the guards and air traffic control. Well, at least in theory. They both rush out of the GCPD the next second, heading for the Wayne Manor. We move to Batman's temporary hideout in the train tunnel, where he's already bugged 9 and is listening in on his latest conversation while analyzing the bad heroin simultaneously. 9 is talking to David Said, and he insists on a meeting and isn't taking no for an answer. Although wary at first, David agrees as Batman uses his computer to identify David's voice print. There are no matches in any database, which makes the Bat curious. Very curious. We catch up with David Said as he meets 9 in an affluent part of Chinatown. David, already wary of this meeting, starts leaving once 9 asks him to meet Sai Bat Gao, his boss. She wants to meet David to gauge him, as the bad batch of heroin on the street means bad for business and could attract the wrong kind of attention. David knows they suspect he's the one spiking and dealing the bad heroin, but he can't be bothered anymore. He starts getting in the car as 9 pulls out a gun, insisting that he has no choice as the boss wants to meet David. "Where am I driving?" asks David. "The tea garden." "It's not far," replies 9 unaware that Batman has been spying on their conversation from a rooftop all this while. David and 9 enter the tea garden, where David is asked to hand over his gun. Now, feeling vulnerable, David cautiously follows 9 further into the garden. Batman listens from a nearby rooftop as the winged creature from earlier swoops down near him. David and 9 enter Sai Bat Gao's residence and David is inquired about his purchase. Batman moves closer to not miss any part of the conversation and he suddenly hears, "Celestial Bat, I have prayed and you have come." Batman turns around and he's overshadowed by the large form of the winged creature as he continues, "And together we will claim heaven's vengeance." Detective Comics number 769, Purity Part 2. The winged creature is deformed, with rags that were once likely a shirt hanging from his torso, as the creature continues, "You are here to join me, Celestial Bat, and together we will strike in heaven's name. Your presence here brings me luck." Batman knows the creature. It's what's left of Ekin Su, Lucky Hand Triad's previous leader. He's been crippled by an immortality potion courtesy of Whisper Adair, the snake assassin from the League of Assassins. Batman declines straight-faced, looking directly into the creature's eyes, which doesn't sit well with it. Deluded, the creature finds stopping the Triad's business to be its sole purpose, which is why he grows angrier by the second. None of them, however, notice the barrel of an automatic submachine gun slowly peeking from the window before opening fire on the creature. Batman hasn't been spotted as he's directly under the window. It's one of Saib Bat Gao's henchmen, and he watches Ekin Su take flight screaming, "You are my enemy, and you will fall with the rest of them." Unaware that the words were meant for Batman. "It's him! It's the Die Lo!" says the henchman while still keeping an eye out of the window, wary of the creature's return. Die Lo. It's what Ekin Su was called when he was the Triad's leader. 9 was always too loyal to Die Lo, and hearing that name sparked his curiosity. As panic spreads around the room, 9 is given the job of keeping David Said in check. He points a gun at David, but David knows better than that. With a swift move, he bends 9 trigger finger in the opposite direction as he demands the gun from 9 "Give me the gun!" Amidst the panic, nobody notices Batman standing in the room. He puts the 5 men in the room to sleep with a single strike. Sayit Bat Gao now stands in the middle of the limp bodies of 4 of her men and David Said, wincing at the sight of the bat. Batman talks to her, one-on-one, inquiring about the bad batch of heroin being sold on the streets. She says it's not the Lucky Hand Triad's doing, as it'd be bad for business. In the background, 9 and David both come to their senses as they slowly get up and join in on the conversation. When inquired where the heroin was being sourced from, Sayit Bat Gao informed that the current batch they're dealing came from Central America. This makes David's ears perk up as he tries to control his excitement. Batman and Sayit Bat Gao continue talking, and both of them know that Ekin Su is behind the poisonings. "When I stop him, I'll come back for you," says the Bat to Saeed Bat Gao as he leaves the tea garden. Meanwhile, back at the manor, Detective Allen and Montoya are busy questioning Alfred, who cleans vessels in the kitchen in the background. Alfred isn't shaken by their initial threats, so they get straight to the point. You maintain he's innocent. Alfred tries to keep his legal ends covered, which is why they ask him to comment on the question using his experience over the years with Bruce. Indeed, I did know him once. That Bruce Wayne could never have murdered Vesper Fairchild as you believe, comments Alfred. As the questions continue, the state of the kitchen shelves catches Alfred's eye. Something's amiss. As Alfred snaps back to reality, Detective Crispus Allen finally arrives at his most important question. Who aided Bruce Wayne in his escape? Alfred knows he's the logical suspect, but they have no proof. The two detectives continue to press Alfred on the matter, who nonchalantly continues finishing his work in the kitchen. Once he's done, Alfred removes his apron and starts getting dressed in his usual suit as the two detectives further pressure Alfred. The butler finally implies that maybe the GCPD isn't willing to spend the flight fare to the Caribbean islands, which is where Bruce is allegedly hiding. This might be the reason he's being harassed today. Unless you have any evidence to support your theories, Alfred asks calmly. And Detective Allen sternly replies, when we do that, you could end up like Wayne's bodyguard, rotting in a cell at Blackgate, all because of misguided loyalty to a murderer. The two detectives proceed to exit the manor. David Said hides in a parked car outside the Jade Palace in Chinatown while he converses with the Queen using his laptop. David wants to investigate who's poisoning the heroine, but his request is denied. He's ordered to avoid contact with Batman at all costs and continue with the mission. David's been tasked to find the triad source of heroin. The conversation ends as David spots 9 Pound exit the Jade Palace and tails him to his destination at a safe distance in his car. 9 Pound enters a mysterious hotel, and David soon follows him to the penthouse. He attempts to snoop in on the conversation inside when he reaches the top. Said has only heard a few words when a sudden scream from inside startles him. Gun drawn, the prospective knight kicks down the door and enters, but it's too late. Ekin-Su, or what's left of him anyways, has killed everyone except 9 Pound in the room, and now he lunges at David. David fires his gun, managing to stand his ground for a few minutes, but die low is too fast, and David's gun is soon kicked out of his hands. Pay your price, demands Ekin-Su as he holds David by the collar. But before things take a turn for the worse, Batman crashes in through the roof, kicking Ekin-Su in the face with both his feet as he lands. The Bat lands another kick on the creature's face, which stuns him temporarily. He tries to appeal to his human side, whatever small part of it might be left, reminding him of the truth, how he calls the Bat, Bat, a symbol of luck because of the lucky triad, Ekin-Su's family. Is this how you protect them, Ekin-Su? Demands Batman, arms wide open, bloodstains spattered across the entire wall behind him, just out of sight. David Said slowly creeps toward his gun in the background as Ekin-Su tries to make sense of things, but fails. He only remembers a few things: the death of his family due to heroin, and how he was turned into this monster because of it. All of them pay. Ekin-Su bellows as he holds 9 Pound by the collar. David is about to shoot Ekin-Su in the back, but is stopped by Batman. This gives Ekin-Su the chance to make a quick getaway, which has Batman staring at Said in anger, who now has the gun pointed directly at the side of Batman's head. Detective Comics number 770, Purity Part 3. David and Batman stare into each other's eyes as Batman holds David up by the collar with a gun pointed directly at Batman's head. The intense standoff ends with Batman throwing away the gun from David's right hand. However, Checkmate's prospective knight has a backup as he points another gun at Batman's head. Let go, demands David. Batman smiles and sends David flying into a nearby mirror. David never stood a chance against Batman, and he knows it as the Bat begins questioning the Checkmate member. David comes clean that Checkmate doesn't have any interest in investigating the bad batch of heroin. They're interested in the Lucky Triad's new source. Batman has heard all he needs to. He leaves the penthouse the way he came in, as David stands amidst all the dead bodies. Batman is perched on a rooftop, scanning the skies for Ekin-Su as he wonders about Checkmate's presence in Gotham. Lex Luthor, the current president, has direct oversight of all covert operations, which could mean trouble. He then spots Ekin-Su leaving his hideout, the abandoned tower. Batman grapples and swings toward the tower, unaware that David has been keeping an eye on him from the ground all this while. Batman is appalled at the way Ekin-Su is living in the abandoned tower, with dirt and grime everywhere, empty cans of drain cleaner scattered on the floor. He checks Ekin-Su's stash of drain cleaner to estimate the number of people he might have killed by poisoning the heroin. Well into double digits, the Bat says as 9 Pound tries to sneak out of the hideout, unaware that he's already been spotted. As he nears the exit, Batman uses a batarang to close the door. Don't leave yet, 9 Pound. We have so much to discuss. David Said sits in a park speaking to the Queen over a handheld device. He He reports his findings. £9's the only one left in the Triad's hierarchy that can lead them to the new Central American source. Said informs the Queen that Batman already has hold of £9, and he's thus commanded to question the Bat himself. Said chuckles, and the Queen sternly informs him that he needs to do this. Batman and Said's interests now coincide, which is why Said will now offer Batman assistance. And when Batman wants to know the truth, you tell him the truth. We're making an exception, says the Queen. David takes a long breath as the upcoming task is surely going to be monumental. David thinks and asks what he's supposed to do about Ekin-Su. There's a brief pause, and then the Queen informs him to focus on his task. Checkmate will take care of the rest. Back at the abandoned tower, Batman dangles £9 from the edge as he interrogates him. The Bat wants to know where Ekin-Su went, and after a brief deliberation, £9 gives a name. Halsey. He went to find Halsey. When pressed further on Halsey's identity, £9 trembles and says, "He's the Connect. He's been bringing in the stuff from Central America. But Dilo's not right there right now," says £9 as he spots Ekin-Su speeding towards them in the background. Before the Bat can react, Ekin-Su crashes into him, almost sending him over the edge. Batman dangles over the other edge of the abandoned tower with his left hand, but is soon kicked in the back. Ekin-Su continues rambling about delusions, and Batman knows that Dilo is too far gone, no longer human. Batman jumps away from the edge and uses the bat rope to latch onto Ekin-Su's leg. Agitated, the creature that once used to be Ekin-Su swoops low, crashing the Bat into the ground below and then dragging him along. £9 watches on from the tower as his Dilo takes to the air again. Suddenly, £9 catches David's head peeking in through the hatch in the tower as Ekin-Su speeds toward them. Batman and Ekin-Su crash into the tower, which sends £9 falling to his death. "Dilo!" screams £9 as he goes over the ledge. Ekin-Su looks on, in horror, frozen in his place, as Batman steps in and uses his grappling gun to catch £9 in the nick of time and pull him up. "I'm not your enemy. Let me help you," says the Bat as Ekin-Su places his hands on £9's shoulders protectively. Said watches on. David and Batman stand in the tower, watching the street below as the GCPD arrests Ekin-Su and £9. David presses Batman about his decision. How is sending them both to prison gonna help them? When the Bat ignores his questions, David asks, "You questioned £9, didn't you, Batman? Did he identify the source?" Anger swells inside the Bat as he grabs David by the collar and inquires about Checkmate's purpose. What they actually want. Said finally gives in and tells him the truth. Unlike Batman's assumption, Luthor has no control over Checkmate, which is why they're looking into his sources and how the President has been funding tons of covert operations without oversight. Checkmate believes Luthor could be using agencies like the CIA or NSA to sell heroin on the black market. Confiscated by these agencies in Central America, Batman loosens up slightly and after a long pause replies, "Halsey." The name £9 gave up was Halsey. In an affluent bar in Gotham, a balding man is greeted by a blonde man in a blue suit, who's clearly in better shape than him. "Evan Halsey? Bradford Landis. We met in D.C. last month," he says as he slips a dissolvable pill in Halsey's drink. Halsey recognizes Landis, and they talk briefly before Landis walks away. Moments later, Evan Halsey collapses on the ground after taking a sip of the drink. A heart attack. Batgirl, number 27. Tag. Spoiler! AKA Stephanie Brown, Bat Family's latest addition and Tim Drake's girlfriend, is leaping across rooftops in Gotham, checking her surroundings every now and then. Convinced no one's around, she heads for the next rooftop. About to leap off, when someone trips her over and says, "Tag." Spoiler lands on her face with a loud crash as she turns around to watch Batgirl standing there gleefully, clearly grinning under her sewn-over mask. "You win," she says to Spoiler, offering her a hand as she gets up, clearly giggling now. "You know, ever since you beat Shiva, you've turned into a real..." However, before she can complete her sentence, she's cut off by the Batgirl, who raises a finger, sensing something nearby. They look below in the next building's complex and spot a gang of goons in full tactical gear. Night vision goggles, full body armor, machine guns with high-powered scopes, the whole 9 yards. They seem to be infiltrating the building, which belongs to the NSA. Spoiler and Batgirl watch on as Spoiler gets excited at the sight of a serious heist. Batgirl agrees about the seriousness of the situation, but before Spoiler can act, she punches her right across the face, knocking her out. Spoiler's too young for such a task right now, she thinks to herself as she leaps below. The gang walks into the building in a single file silently as Batgirl approaches in the background. She moves toward the light switch stealthily and turns it on. Blinded by the light due to their night vision goggles, the gang struggles to remove them as Batgirl easily proceeds to knock them out one by one. While two of them manage to let loose a few shots, they're still no match for the prowess of Batgirl. After all, she's Cassandra Cain, daughter of deadly assassins David Cain and Lady Shiva, trained since birth to be a killer, and now Batman's star pupil. Batgirl grabs the last goon and punches him in the face, knocking him out instantly. With the unused batarang still in her hand, she proceeds to exit the NSA complex. She gets back up on the roof where she left Spoiler, but she's nowhere to be found. "Congratulations," says Batman from behind, startling her as she reacts like a rabbit. He looks weary. The batsuit is worn with stains all over, his beard patchy and his smile weak. "Even I've never beaten Shiva hand to hand," he says with a slight hint of pride on his face after a long time. Batgirl's been staring at him in surprise and awe all this while, but soon, that turns into suspicion. "You look different," she proclaims, and Batman promptly changes the subject, asking her to steer clear of such teams in the future. Batman is about to walk away when Batgirl grabs him by the arm, concern taking over her voice as she says, "Wait." But before she can speak further, the large news billboard in front of them flashes a wanted poster for Bruce. They both stare at it, silence taking over with every passing second. Like Batman, Batgirl is a woman of few words, so all she says is, "Let me help." The Bat walks forward, but he's always had a soft spot for her. "I let you face Shiva despite the danger, because it was something you had to do yourself," he says as he stops a few feet ahead of her. Batgirl thanked him, her voice laden with gratitude, and that's when the Bat turned around and cut her off. "Don't thank me. Return the favor." Back at Oracle's headquarters in the Gotham City clock tower, Stephanie and Cassandra face Barbara, who's busy on her computer. Spoiler's complaining about the knockout she suffered at Batgirl's hands on the rooftop. She accuses Batgirl of breaking a jaw, and Batgirl sheepishly denies it. And Batgirl finally informs Spoiler that if she'd broken her jaw, Spoiler wouldn't be able to speak, and my life would be much easier, adds Barbara sarcastically as she continues extensively searching for clues in Vesper's murder case. Spoiler leaves, and Barbara confronts Batgirl about Spoiler's broken jaw, and Batgirl informs her it was only a nerve strike. "Fracture?" Barbara asks, concerned. "Very tiny," says Batgirl while flashing her innocent puppy eyes. Barbara sighs and turns back toward the screens when Batgirl tells her about meeting Batman tonight. This grabs her attention instantly, but Batgirl tells her that they didn't talk about much. She wants to focus on the clues they found so far in the murder case. Barbara says that Robin, Nightwing, and her have found tons of clues over the past several weeks. Unfortunately, they all point to Bruce committing the murder. If this is a setup, it's unlike anything I've ever seen. The ifs in that sentence irks Batgirl, who furrows her brow and asks Barbara about it, who averts her gaze and claims it to be a slip of the tongue, clearly not believing her own words, which only makes Batgirl press further. As though a child confronting her mother, she holds Barbara by the chin and turns her gaze toward herself. Batgirl knows. "You think he did it." She looks deeper into Barbara's eyes and realizes Barbara doesn't feel that way. Barbara gives in and confesses that she has no clue what she's supposed to think anymore. Both of them avert their gaze from each other, looking into the distance. Doubt, uncertainty, weeks of investigation, what-ifs. Everything takes over their minds in that second. Barbara breaks the silence as she wheels herself towards her computer. She emphasizes that she isn't jumping to conclusions, only doing what the Batman taught them all, to follow the clues. Batgirl feels embarrassed and asks if there's anything she can do to be of help. Barbara asks Batgirl to help her believe that Bruce didn't commit the murder. Voluntarily meeting Batgirl's eyes for the first time, determination manifests on Batgirl's face as she leaves the clock tower. An hour later, Spoiler leads Batgirl into a graveyard and points to a grave. It's Vesper's grave. Batgirl commands Spoiler to leave as she moves toward the grave. Spoiler soon realizes what she means to do and steps in front of her, asking her why, but Batgirl doesn't reply, just asks Spoiler to leave. "No, look, I know you're all dark and freaky and stuff, but this is just too weird. You want to dig her up? You're gonna have to knock me out again." Bam! Batgirl nerve strikes Spoiler without a second thought. She falls to the ground with a loud thud and can't believe Batgirl's audacity as she gets up. But soon Spoiler realizes that Batgirl had knocked her out, likely for hours, which was mere seconds for her. She realizes this because as she wakes up, she spots Vesper's corpse already dug up, lying in a coffin. And Batgirl? She sits holding her knees in a corner, sulking away. She's disappointed in herself. Batgirl has trained with Batman. She knows the size and imprint of his fist, which she expected to cross-check with the bruises on the corpse, but it's decomposed beyond that point. "You're right, this was wrong," says Cassandra, facing away from Spoiler as she accepts her mistake. "Sorry, Miss Fairchild," as she touches the corpse's jaw lovingly. It's at this moment something clicks. Something catches Batgirl's eye. She removes her glove and feels Vesper's jaw. Batgirl has finally found something. "Nerve strike," she declares. Back at the Oracle's headquarters, Nightwing and Robin join the rest of them. They all grin and speculate as they finally found a clue that might prove Bruce's innocence. They speculate that if you're Bruce Wayne killing Vesper in a fit of rage, then why would you use a nerve strike? And it then clicks to Nightwing and Barbara. It was the only way for the killer to get Vesper to the Wayne Manor. without bruises, restraints, or sedatives. There's a sense of relief across each of their faces, a sense of joy, something that's been missing for months. And Batgirl and Spoiler are well aware of that. Even though they're treated like the youngest, they can't help but watch on from afar as Nightwing, Robin, and the Oracle gleefully discuss the new clue with a sense of innocence, like children. Spoiler is proud of Batgirl's finding, and she proposes a new match of tag. This time, double the stakes. Cassandra hangs her head low, claiming she has no money, but then quips back at Spoiler that it shouldn't be a problem, as she's the one who always loses. Batgirl jumps out of the window. The game of tag has begun, and she leaves Stephanie seething with anger in the background. I swear to God, next time, I'm rooting for Shiva. Nightwing Volume 2, number 68, Time and Motion. It's a gloomy and dark night at the Wayne Manor, and Alfred points a double-barrel shotgun at Nightwing, who has his hands up in the air. Nightwing was sneaking into the mansion, which took Alfred by surprise. Alfred was expecting a petty burglar at this hour. Nightwing had to sneak in as Batman had changed the voice code for all entrances to the Batcave. Nobody is allowed anymore. But Nightwing knows better. Alfred, like Batman, always has a backup, and this time, a backup code. Nightwing presses Alfred about it, who finally gives in to the young master. Very well, Balmoral, he discloses as the grandfather clock in front of them silently slides away, revealing an entrance to the Batcave. Nightwing is back to investigate with new vigor after finding out about the nerve strike used on Vesper. Alfred has scoured the entire manor, inventorying everything, and he too has noticed some peculiarities. Lack of dust in certain areas of the Wayne Manor, despite Alfred's prolonged absence. Nightwing knows Bruce never cleans, and Alfred agrees. Someone else was in the manor. Nightwing sits down at the Batcomputer, and Alfred joins him. They both talk about Bruce's stint as a student at the FBI Academy, something Alfred wishes Bruce had continued. Nightwing continues frantically hitting keystrokes and explains that he's running a diagnostic scan on all the sensors around the Batcave, but nothing. The diagnostic doesn't find any sensor triggered. The killer can hack, realizes Nightwing as he furrows his brow at the screen. Nightwing continues analyzing the data when he finally finds something. 3 power outages before and after Vesper's murder. Logs show that both main and backup generators were taken offline as well. Alfred asks if this would have shut down the security system, which can't be the case. Nightwing further informs Alfred that the killer would have had to have broken the security system first in order to shut down the generators. Alfred realizes Dick plans to search the cave as Nightwing grabs a scanner. He plans to search all the known points of entry, at least. Alfred continues with his duties as Dick scours the cave. He starts by checking the entry points at the top, then the entry points for all the tunnels that act as exits for their vehicles. Soon, he moves on to smaller entrances, and then finally, the water. Bingo! Nightwing returns to the surface and shows Alfred what he found. What is it? Alfred asks. But Dick is also clueless. It's some sort of a sensor or gadget. Now totally fried, Nightwing has a plan. He grabs the disc containing the security footage of the manor before the murder happened. And although Alfred has already checked the footage multiple times, there's someone else Nightwing wants to take a look at it. Someone far more capable than both of them. Robin, the boy wonder himself. Robin is joined by Nightwing on a rooftop in the city. Robin plans to rip the discs and analyze the footage frame by frame. Dick tells Tim about his latest find and how the killer likely hacked their entire system to remove any traces of himself. We're up against someone that sophisticated? Asks Robin as Nightwing nods. Dick's pretty sure that whoever it was managed to enter the Batcave at least 3 times, especially now that he's found the fried sensor. Robin thinks and then questions about the killer's first entry. He would have had to have breached the manor security to place the gadgets in the first place. Nightwing's been thinking about the same, and he plans to find this out by trying to break into the Wayne Manor himself. But before that, Nightwing needs more evidence. He needs GCPD's case files. Dick dresses up in his protective Bloodhaven police uniform and sneaks into the GCPD HQ. He makes his way to the 3rd floor and finds what he needs. The only problem? There are over 2,000 pages on the case, and none of them have been digitized. Dick decides to stream the video back to the Batcave, where he'll be able to individually go over each page manually. Sadly, his venture is cut short when he hears Detective Allen and Montoya about to walk in. As the 2 detectives walk in, Dick is nowhere to be found. They continue talking as Crispus Allen looks for the latest case files on the Vesper murder case. He's unable to find them, so he asks Montoya about them, who speculates that someone might have filed them. The 2 continue looking for the file as we see Dick clutching the file on the ledge outside the 3rd floor window. Gotham Knights number 28, Anti-Hero, Part 1, The Mortician. Gotham streets have been lined up with more blood than usual lately. The Triads seem to be at war. Detective Montoya is at the scene of the latest murder. The victim, Viper Lee, from the Lucky Hand Triad. His head is bashed in, half of it unrecognizable as he lies dead on the street. He was hit with a plank torn off from a nearby fence, which is being examined for fingerprints. Detective Crispus Allen joins Renee as she explains that this is the third Triad murder in the last few weeks. All the victims were quite young, including Viper Lee, who was just 20. This seems to take a toll on Montoya, who hangs her head dejected as she walks back to her car. In another part of Chinatown, Kyung Lee packs his bags and gets ready to leave his parents' house forever. His little brother Tai is quite concerned. Kyung explains to him that he has to leave as he'll be suspected of Viper's murder by his boss, Fai. He instructs Tai to take care and says, "Don't open the door for no one but Mama, Pop or Grandma. Understand? No one. Okay?" He emphasizes, but Tai is quite confused. His brother had told him that he wanted Viper dead, had hoped Viper died many times so he could move up in ranks. Kyung knows his brother is too little to understand things, so he just kisses his forehead and leaves the house. Kyung makes his way to the morgue, sneaks in and finds the locker with Viper's corpse. He slowly starts prying away at the locker door in the dark in an attempt to get it open. Soon, he hears voices outside the morgue. It's the doctor, and apparently, he's got a new undertaker, Mr. Porto Vito. The doctor and Vito enter the morgue with Kyung nowhere in sight. He's hiding under the sheets on a gurney, pretending to be another one of the dead bodies. Back at the GCPD HQ, Renee is talking to an officer from this morning. The prints have been identified, but the officer has a puzzled look on her face. She asks Montoya if she's sure if the detective found the correct murder weapon. Renee nods, and the officer informs her the prints belong to Steve Corey, a street thug. Renee is following the officer so far until she says, "Steve Corey died 26 days ago," and Detective Renee's face reflects surprise and horror all at once. Meanwhile, outside the Big Wong restaurant in Chinatown, members of the Lucky Hand Triad face down members of the Neon Dragon Triad. Guns drawn as heated voices drown out the usual noise of daily traffic. The only thing stopping them, Batman, who stands in the middle of both the sides, preventing a confrontation and likely a deadly shootout. Leading the Lucky Hand Triad is Fai, and leading the Neon Dragon Triad is Wing. Making something out or understanding the ongoing argument in this complete chaos is out of the question, so Batman holds both the leaders' mouths shut and points to one of the lower Lucky Hand Triad members and asks him to explain the situation. Stammering and frightened, the guy tells the Batman that Fai thinks Kyung Yuk killed Lee, and that Wing, Neon Dragon's representative, is hiding him. But Wing, on the other hand, doesn't know where Kyung is and thinks maybe Fai has already killed him. Understood. The Bat replies, and bam! He smashes Fai and Wing's heads together to knock them out and says, "I'll find Kyung," as he swings his cape around to disarm each member of the gang who by now had their guns pointed at him. "And you will do nothing," he says as he grapples away into the night. The Batcave is whirring with the sound of computers scanning the security footage Robin was handed over earlier. It's been hours, and yet the boy wonder has found nothing. He's scouring every frame and scrutinizing each pixel when bingo! He's found something on camera too as he freezes the frame and zooms in. There it is. A shadow caught on camera of a man as he vanishes behind bushes. It's just a shadow, and that too just of his leg. But as he continues zooming in, he can make out the shoe and its pattern. Robin calls Nightwing and informs him about the shadow and lack of wind in the frame. On the other side of Gotham, Batman enters the morgue to look for Kyung's clues. He searches and finds the locker where Viper Lee's body was kept. The one Kyung was trying to open. It's now empty. Puzzled, the Bat is about to look for more clues when he hears two doctors about to enter the morgue. He quickly hides himself. As soon as they enter, one of the doctors exclaims, Where are they all? There aren't any bodies in the morgue. They're all gone." They exit the morgue in panic. Batman was hiding in the ceiling. The Bat uses a gadget to jam the circuit breakers, cutting the power of the entire hospital so he can continue looking around. The doctors panic for the safety of their patients but soon realize that the backup generators and all life support systems are still up. The Bat, by this time, is making his way into the doctor's office who works in the morgue. There, he finds the new undertaker's card, Mr. Porto Vito. Hereafter Mortuary, 725 Bainmont Circle, Otisburg, Gotham. He knows where to go. We catch up with Kyung, this time in the mortuary. He's been pretending to be a corpse all this while. Now that he's pretty sure no one's around anymore, Kyung decides to take off the sheets and make his exit. As he exits, he hears voices coming from down the hall. Curiosity soon turns to horror as Kyung watches Vito chanting with a dead body suspended up in the air. Vito is about to inject the body with some mysterious liquid when suddenly, Don't, man! You're gonna bring ghosts!" screams Kyung from behind, unaware of Vito's plans, who fills with rage at the sight of Kyung and screams at the young Triad member to go away and leave Vito alone. But a terrified Kyung talks about the stories of ghosts told by his grandmother, and Vito replies, "There are no such things as ghosts, only trapped biogenetic energies. Please, let me explain. trying to appease the clearly distraught youngster. But Kyung has different plans. He decides to flee in a panic, pushing past 2 gurneys with dead bodies. They were Vito's dead mother and father. Vito screams in rage as Kyung sprints down the hall. Soon, however, 2 decomposed corpses of a man and a woman emerge from the room where he was headed for, their arms raised as they approach Kyung. Batman has already reached the graveyard where the mortuary is located. He's outside when he hears Kyung's blood-curdling scream from the mortuary. The Bat kicks the door and enters the mortuary in silence. He watches hundreds of decomposing corpses lining the hallway, each one dressed in excellent clothes when compared to their skin that's falling off. Each corpse makes its way to the basement, and Batman follows them, soon discovering a restrained Kyung and Vito. "Release him," the Bat says, and Vito obliges. He commands the corpses to leave the youngster, and they do, but still circle him so he can't escape. Kyung is terrified and screaming at the top of his lungs. The young Triad member draws his gun and starts shooting the corpses circling him. The Bat leaps toward Kyung and tackles him to the ground, making him lose the gun in the process. He stands between the corpses and Kyung as he asks Vito if these people are really dead. Vito replies, "They were, but it's not perfect. I'm still working on the formula, but at least they're still here." And that's when Kyung spots Viper Lee among the corpses and screams his name. Wanting to escape this mayhem, the Bat drops 3 pellets that explode with a loud bang and flash. Kyung is quick on his feet and manages to grab Viper as the Bat pulls both of them out of the morgue. Okay, calm down everyone. Calm down. Vito addresses the rest of the corpses in the basement. "It could have been much worse," he says with a sigh of relief. The Bat, visibly angry and with no time to waste, slams Kyung's and Viper's head on the Batmobile with a loud thud, demanding an explanation. Kyung's terrified. Of ghosts, of his gang, of the rival gang. But one thing's clear, he didn't kill Viper. Back at Kyung's home, Tai is busy screaming at his wardrobe, or rather someone inside, someone who's on a timeout. Someone Tai is still mad at, and that someone wants to get out. The knocks on the closet door continue, and Tai finally gives in and opens the door. The stench of death fills the air as a huge burly corpse steps out of the closet. It's revealed that Tai was the one who ordered the corpse to kill Viper Lee, to help his brother move up the ranks. This plan, however, is about to backfire as the corpse no longer listens to or obeys Tai's commands. Nightwing number 69, ins and outs. Dressed in his climbing suit, with tons of climbing anchors wrapped around his waist, Nightwing rappels down into the Batcave. As promised to Robin earlier, he's trying to infiltrate the cave, just like Vesper's killer did. Hours pass by, and despite multiple attempts, Nightwing gets nowhere. He climbs back up and meets up with Alfred, who shows him how much the cave has been mapped so far. It's barely enough, but Alfred adds that Bruce and he sealed any entrances that could fit a man, although that was in the early days, but the quake could have opened more. Nightwing adds, and Alfred suggests trying the smoking hull technique, a practice used by shipmakers in the past to check for leaks in a wooden ship. A controlled fire would be lit, and smoke would seep out of any cracks or leaks. Nightwing finds it to be a great idea, but fears that doing so might cover the entire area of Bristol Township in smoke. Not very covert, unless you disguise the smoke long enough, says Robin, catching Dick and Alfred by surprise. He's been listening in on their conversation all this while, and has already come up with a plan, which is to use a light gas colored in the infrared spectrum instead of smoke. Nightwing takes to the air as he uses an infrared filter to scan for the smoke. He can spot it coming out of most known openings while Robin gloats about his genius plan over the radio. A new opening spotted under the Blandings Bridge raises their hope, but it's just a small entrance inside a fox's cave, not big enough even for a small child. It's gonna be a long night, and Nightwing isn't happy about it. As time passes, Robin and Alfred are going weary at the Batcave when suddenly Nightwing gets their hopes up as he says, "The old dairy barn on the southwest corner of the property. Lots of smoke. Could be the one." Indeed, there's tons of smoke coming out of the barn as Nightwing lands his backpack copter nearby. Robin tells him about the barn. No one's used it for years, not since the Wayne family moved from farming to real estate a few decades ago. Nightwing walks inside, and he finds some loose floorboards, which seem to be the source of the smoke. They've been recently replaced. Dick removes them, prepares himself, and then takes the plunge. He's determined to find the entrance as he informs Robin and Alfred back at the cave. Robin, too, is excited for this new find. He and Alfred make their way to the barn to investigate and find any physical evidence they can. It's their only chance. Robin and Alfred reach the barn within minutes and are busy looking for clues. Robin finds a single fiber at the entrance, but it's all they need, their first physical evidence. Eager to analyze the fiber, Robin checks in on Nightwing before leaving, who isn't having much luck as he rappels down deeper into the cave opening. As Nightwing continues, the cave gets dark and narrow. His connection to Robin over the radio is shoddy at best. He gives up on trying to stay in touch and makes his way through a narrow opening when his hand suddenly catches a laser sensor. Bruce's perimeter, of course. But no, he sees the laser being bounced around in an attempt to bypass it, and Nightwing knows this is the clue he'd been looking for. Back at the Batcave, Robin is having the panic attack of the century. His mind races through every dark possible end Nightwing could have met down in the cave since he lost contact over the radio. In a last-ditch attempt, the Boy Wonder screams, "Nightwing, answer me!" Right here, boy basket case. A voice echoes behind Robin, and it's Nightwing. Dirty, wet, covered in mud, and his suit torn in multiple places. He's, seen better days. Nightwing shows Alfred and Robin the gadgets he found down in the cave, and although they self-destruct upon contact, they're the second physical evidence they found since the murder months ago. Things are finally looking up for the Bat family. Birds of Prey, number 43, Blind Spot. Barbara's HQ in the clock tower is dimly lit in the middle of the night. Dick lies on the couch, clearly exhausted as he recounts his efforts over the past few weeks. Since he found the entrance, he's retraced the killer's path multiple times, but all he's been able to determine is that whoever it was good at his job. No more clues left behind, but clear signs of the killer entering multiple times, which only scares and disheartens Grayson further. The killer could have come and gone whenever he wanted, how many ever times he wanted. He lies on the couch dejected as Barbara recounts everything she's found so far, in an attempt to get his hopes up. We know and can prove Vespera's journals were doctored, and we know when. It all falls in line with the power outages and break-ins at the cave and manor. Although uplifted, Nightwing sighs as he realizes that even though both Vesper and Bruce's journals were doctored, they can't use it as evidence, not without exposing Batman as Bruce Wayne to the world. Barbara chides him for being cynical as she points out the similarity in the edits made in both the journals. It was done by the same person. Robin and Alfred join in on the conversation virtually from the Batcave as Barbara informs him about the similarities in the edits, how the edits coincide with the power outages at the manor, and how even though evidence, none of this can be used, not without exposing the entire Bat family's secret identities. A couple of hours pass by, and after much digging, Barbara seems to have a concrete timeline of events on her hand. She calls Robin, Alfred, and Nightwing over the computer and begins laying out the outline based on the information they currently know. And here's how it follows. A person or persons unknown break into the cave. They cut power to the cave, alter the security system to allow them inside, and conceal at least 2 visits. On one of those visits, they rewrite Bruce's journal. The same night, they change Vesper's diary. All 2 weeks before the murder. When the oracle is done, Robin isn't pleased and states that they can't use this evidence as it would expose their secret identities. It proves nothing. It proves it to me. And that means everything as far as I'm concerned, says Nightwing with a new sense of vigor in his voice. Batman number 603, Turning Point. TVs playing in an electronics store's display window showcase representatives of the left and right wings going at it in a debate. The debate is heating up as a Batarang crashes into the display window, followed by a ninja. Batman leaps from the air and kicks the ninja in the face again, causing him to smash into the window. He has the ninja subdued when suddenly another ninja's head is smashed into one of the TVs. Catwoman stands there triumphantly, but the Batman isn't in the mood for any games. Batman grapples to a nearby rooftop and Catwoman soon follows, stating that she's here because of Dr. Tompkins, Batman's godmother. She informs him that the doctor wants to meet the Batman as all other methods of contacting him don't work anymore. And this is when Batman knows it's important. Batman is about to leave the Leslie Tompkins clinic when Catwoman offers him her help, but Batman is long gone. Batman reaches the clinic and demands why Leslie summoned him. His words are harsh and rude. His godmother is not pleased and asks him to show her some respect. The Bat is silent for the next minute, and the good doctor then continues, Gary Sloane is in St. Luke's. He won't last a week from what I hear, and he's asking to see Batman. There is utter shock on Batman's face. Quite the rarity, especially since giving up Bruce Wayne. You do remember Gary Sloane, don't you? Leslie asks, but the Bat is zoned out. He's in his head, reliving his darkest memories, the night his parents were killed. Policemen barricade an area and mark the bodies lying on the ground in chalk when a detective pulls up and is pointed in someone's direction by one of the officers. It's little Bruce Wayne. The approaching detective kneels down on one knee, concern and care in his eyes, and says, Hey Bruce, I'm Detective Sloane. Do you think you can talk right now, or should I come back later? Back in the present day, Gary Sloane is sleeping soundly in the chair beside his hospital bed. Blood and medicines being fed to him through multiple IVs. He wakes up, sensing someone in the room, and Batman says, I was told you wanted to see me, Detective Sloane. The old detective is clearly taken aback, his eyes widened with shock. No one has called him detective in years. Batman again asks him why he wants to see him, The detective tells him it's because he doesn't have much time left, and he has a lot to tell him. Detective Sloan worked his entire life in the GCPD before the Bat showed up during his days of retirement. At first, Sloan wasn't too keen on the vigilante, but then he mentions the murder of Baldwin Berkins III, Detective Sloan's last case. Berkins was in line to become the next mayor when he was assassinated at his dinner table, a case Sloan thought he'd never be able to solve until one day, when the shooter walked in confessing, scared to death, courtesy of Batman. It was Sloan's last case before retirement, and the Bat helped him solve it so he could go out on a good note. God, did I hate you that night. But I took the collar anyway and retired a week later. Always wondered what you did to that guy to make him go that soft though. Sloan says, and the Bat answers, held him upside down in front of an oncoming train. The detective chuckles and continues reliving his glory days. He talks about the onset of vigilantes in Gotham. How that was a good call from Commissioner Gordon considering the rise of villains like the Joker and Two-Face. How he never got to learn how to use a computer. Something he doesn't do to this day. That Gotham needed Batman, and he's done a damn good job being there for the city. The Bat knows where this is going, but the detective does as well as he concludes. Which is all a very roundabout way for an old man to tell you that he wants you to do him a favor. Name it, says the Bat without any hesitation. And Sloan tells him it's the cold case he never closed. The detective wants Batman to solve his last open case, something he's carried on in his mind and in his heart all these years after retirement, all because he made a promise to someone. Batman fears the worst as an old memory hits him like a brick. Little Bruce is standing in the graveyard, having buried his parents moments ago as Detective Sloan faces him earnestly. Are you gonna find the man with the gun, Mr. Sloan? Bruce asks. I hope so, Bruce. I do. I can't promise you that I'll never give up trying. Batman forces himself back to reality as Detective Sloan says, there was something special about that kid. Made me want to promise him justice. That word, justice, hits Batman like a train as he watches the detective lean over and grab a box. It's the box with all the case files on Martha and Tom's Wayne murder. He hands it to Batman, who holds it with both his hands. Sloan hopes Batman can use his skills to find a clue which he might have missed, something he might have glanced over, but the Bat is barely able to hear him. He's going through the evidence. The photograph of his dead parents has him completely zoned out, until he hears Sloan say, I don't believe Bruce Wayne murdered that woman, either. The Bat quickly turns his head and asks Detective Sloan if he really means it. Sloan has seen tons of killers and murderers over the years. He can tell about someone from their eyes, and most of all, he knows what trauma does to a person. He's seen Bruce change. The night his parents died was the defining moment of his life. That boy was changed that night for sure, but it wasn't into a killer, he says, sighing and looking into the distance. All this talk has clearly taken a toll on the detective. He rubs his head and winces with his eyes closed as he hopes maybe Batman can help present-day Bruce as well. Maybe help him clear his name. And I just feel like I let him down so much. Words heavy with pain as Sloan continues rubbing his head. The Bat knows this is his moment, and he replies, not at all. If anything, you were an inspiration. Huh? Sorry, I drifted off for a sec. You say something? Says the detective, opening his eyes again. But the Batman is long gone. Batman is shaken as he walks to the Batmobile and places the evidence box in the back seat. Memories of his childhood flashing through his mind. He's clearly distraught, and the speed and recklessness with which he drives back to his hideout clearly shows that. When he removes his cowl in the hideout, his face is laden with grief. Despite that, he accesses all the files he has on his parents' murder, all the newspaper clippings. He looks at the photo of little Bruce, clutching onto a police officer at the scene of the crime. Something clicks, and he accesses the files for the murder he supposedly committed, Vesper's murder. And he then sees his face, his mugshot, his face covered with Vesper's blood, grief weighing down his eyes, sorrow on his lips, and anger on the tip of his tongue. His eyes, they were the same eyes. They belonged to little Bruce Wayne. He presses a key and then speaks. Oracle, this is Bruce. I need you to run some information for me. Clearly shocked, the Oracle replies, I'm sorry? Could you repeat that, please? Something she had given up on, something everybody had given up on, had finally happened. In months, ever since the murder had happened, Batman had finally referred to himself as Bruce. Detective Comics number 771, Access. It's morning in a dingy Gotham alley as an old homeless man walks down a flight of stairs, a liquor bottle in one hand as he suddenly stops in his tracks, shock and horror taking over his face. It's Batman, lying face first in the ground, his suit in tatters and no sign of life in his eyes. This all started 2 days ago when Batman was continuing his investigation into the bad batch of heroin on Gotham streets. By now, he'd found out that despite all of Lucky Hand Triad's connections drying up, they'd managed to secure a batch from Central America, courtesy of one of the governmental agencies, trying to generate funds outside of governmental discretion for Lex Luthor's nefarious business. His only lead Evan Halsey, the guy who supplied the triad, was sadly killed a few days ago, moments after Batman had learned about him, and he wasn't about to let it go. He'd managed to get a blood sample from Halsey's body and had found organic alkaline in his bloodstream. It was murder. Meanwhile, Gotham was again focused on the Vesper Fairchild murder case, but this time the entire focus was on Sacha Bordeaux, Bruce's bodyguard, whose trial begins today. In another part of Gotham, David Said is busy packing and about to leave when he's confronted by the Bat. Said knows about Halsey's murder, which Batman finds suspicious, especially because Said, Checkmate, and Batman himself are the only ones who know about Halsey. Things heat up when Said's Queen joins in on the conversation, claiming that the murder isn't the reason Said's being relocated. They have someone else on the case. Batman's now had enough as he tapes up the Queen's camera and asks for a name, the name of the murderer, as Checkmate has someone on the case. The Queen refuses, and the Bat promptly kicks the computer out of a window. It's something Said has wanted to do for a long time, and he's pretty easy this time. Although he doesn't know who the murderer is, he does have a lead that can help the Batman get to him. Batman soon pursues the lead and finds the culprit, Bradford Landis. And although finding him was difficult, he had a business address at hand, which was more than enough. Batman hooks his grapple and makes his way onto the glass window of one of the high floors of a skyscraper. The Caped Crusader isn't expecting anyone to be there, let alone Bradford Landis himself. Sadly, this is one of those times the Bat is wrong, as Landis shoots him from the dark shadows, the flash of the gun lighting his face momentarily. The Bat sees him, but is unable to react quickly enough as the glass shatters and sends him tumbling toward the street below. This is bad. Even though his Kevlar vest held up, he's lost the grapple and only has a few moments before he becomes nothing but a splatter on the ground below. He desperately grabs both ends of his cape and tries to slow down his descent, but it's too late. He aims for the mountain of trash below him as he crashes to the ground and faints instantly upon impact. And this is when we come back to the present as the homeless man shakes the Batman awake. Hours have passed, and the Bat realizes this when he sees the sunlight. He's broken most of his ribs as he limps away to his hideout. Undeterred, the Bat tapes up his torso in the hideout and makes a rough sketch of the man that shot from his memory on the Bat computer. Once done, he prints it out and leaves immediately. With his bags packed, Said is about to leave Gotham when he spots Batman standing in front of him, and the Checkmate agent just can't believe his luck. Being more than familiar with the Dark Knight by now, he simply lets the Bat ask his questions. Batman shows him the sketch he printed out earlier and asks, "That him? Landis?" And Said holds his head in despair. It turns out Landis is an alias. That's Robert Amherst, an NSA agent, which explains why the Queen wouldn't give the name to Batman. Batman learns that Amherst reports directly to the White House, and slowly but surely, everything begins to piece together in Batman's mind. Batgirl number 29. Please, please let me live. Vesper begs for her life as she crawls away from a shadow in Wayne Manor. Red color washes across the entire manor as a gun is slowly pointed at the poor journalist. She's in tears as she looks back, begging again, weeping and sobbing. Please, I want to live. The very next moment, bang, 4 gunshots echo through the manor as Batman laughs menacingly, shooting Vesper. Blood sprays everywhere. And suddenly, Batgirl jolts awake in her quarters. It was all a dream. She holds her head in her hands, relieved. A news channel plays updates of the Bruce Wayne case in the background when suddenly the TV is turned off by someone. It's Nightwing. You shouldn't watch that stuff. Rats your brain, he says caringly, offering his hand to her. They've got some investigation to do. Dick tries to lighten the mood as he drives Cassandra to the Wayne Manor, but she seems lost in her thoughts. When asked about it, she takes a long pause before saying, "I feel guilty for doubting him." Dick knows this feeling. He's battled it for months. He takes a deep breath and replies, "We all do." As the car reaches Wayne Manor, Nightwing and Batgirl are joined by Alfred in person and Barbara from a computer screen. They're going over their latest findings and simulating the break-in into the Batcave. Nightwing's been hard at work and knows almost everything about the break-in. The intruder used solid light generators, infra-ultra goggles with 900 Hz range, null sound amplifiers, and thermostatic dampness. All highly sophisticated equipment, which is not easy to acquire, even for the Bat's most notable enemies. And that makes it easier to track. Only a few people in the country can access and procure these items, especially when you factor in the technical know-how and physical prowess required to use them as intended. Barbara knows it all too well, but the mood soon changes as Barbara realizes Batman is again one of the suspects, capable of procuring and using these items. But this time Dick doesn't falter. He instead agrees with Barbara, leaving Cassandra more confused than ever. Being the man he's become through his experiences, Dick explains to Cassandra, she's not saying he did it, she's saying he could have done it. And she's right. There's no evidence to prove he didn't. All the more confused now, Batgirl decides to speak, but Dick continues. Relax. Disproving theories is what we're here to do. Let's stage the crime and just see what happens, okay? Batgirl walks away without a word, leaving Dick confused. He looks at Alfred looking for any kind of approval. Did he do good? Or did he fail? Was he insensitive to her like Batman was to him? Alfred looks Nightwing dead in the eyes. Only time will tell. Alfred, Nightwing and Batgirl stand at the entrance of the manor and start playing out the crime with all the clues they have. And this is the timeline they put together. They suspect the killer to have synthesized Bruce's voice digitally using publicly available interviews and speeches. This audio was used to phone Vesper, which would be the first call to her apartment from the manor, logged at 10:27 p.m. Once the killer invited Vesper using Bruce's synthesized voice, she'd have likely arrived at the manor by 11:15, when corroborated with that day's traffic logs. She met the killer dressed in black from head to toe as soon as she arrived. The strand found in the barn by Robin proves this, as it was unusually long and a synthetic fiber to prevent any shedding. And Nightwing suspects it covered the killer from head to toe because they found no DNA at the scene. No sweat drops or skin flakes, which would have made the job much easier for the Bat family. Nightwing leaves Batgirl upstairs as he continues simulating the murder. Vesper was then knocked out using the nerve strike as Batgirl discovered and then taken to Bruce's bedroom, where the killer turns on the shower. This was done to justify why Bruce was clean when he was found with Vesper's body at the manor. He suspects the killer then revived Vesper to carry out the deed. They, however, skip over the murder for now and make their way to the lobby where Vesper's body was found. The chalk outline is still visible on the floor. The timeline then jumps to 12:04, corroborated by the 911 call recorded by the GCPD. This is when all the killer has to do is dispose of the gun and escape the manor. Nightwing pauses as he realizes his mistake. The 911 call. Batman was still out on his patrol when it was made, and he could have easily picked it up, much like Barbara did that night. He pauses, thinks for a moment. I get it. Smart. The 911 call was quite brutal and hard to hear, but Nightwing remembers the odd thing about it. Despite numerous attempts to talk to Vesper by the dispatcher, she never addresses him directly, never answers any of the questions or even responds to any of them. The 911 call was taped. Nightwing is certain that the killer recorded Vesper's murder and then used it for a bogus 911 call. He likely disposed of the gun in the manor grounds, came back, waited for Bruce and Sasha to return, and then made the bogus call to 911 before finally escaping once Bruce was upstairs. Nightwing sighs as he realizes the only mistake in this simulation, as he says, Batman could have done it too. There isn't a nerve strike in the world that Bruce doesn't know, and this scenario and timeline fit his style of working as well. A baffled and distraught Batgirl tries to protest again. Nightwing comforts her by saying that they just need to find evidence that contradicts this. She grasps at straws, hoping there might be Vesper's blood left by the killer miles away from the house, but Nightwing soon contradicts that theory as well. Bruce could have easily planted the blood, if they had any. Batgirl doesn't realize it, but Nightwing plans to cover all the bases. He's been through this, accused of murder, and this time, he isn't going to leave any stone unturned. But Batgirl isn't buying it. But he's Batman. What couldn't he fake? She says, dejected, and Nightwing knows she's right, but that can wait. They have a murder to stage. Alfred has been silently following them all this while, each step of the simulation weighing heavy on his heart all this while, and now the moment he dreaded has arrived. It's time to simulate the murder. Alfred knows where everything was placed before and after the murder. This is why he's needed here. In the bedroom as Nightwing gets ready for the simulation. Batgirl will be acting as Vesper as Nightwing assumes the role of the killer. The autopsy report has given him a fairly good idea of how the injuries occurred. I know, with your abilities, I don't have to worry about making contact with you, but if you could try to recoil as if it'll improve the simulation, says Dick. Despite his best efforts, his voice laden with concern. Batgirl agrees in a jiffy. She wants Bruce's name cleared as much as he does, and this is nothing. She's gonna let nothing stand in the way. The first injury was on Vesper's face, and Nightwing gets ready to take the hit. He punches and Batgirl recoils. It's good enough for Dick, but not good enough for Cassandra. Batgirl removes her cowl and prepares herself. She asks Dick to hit her again. Nightwing doesn't say much as he throws another punch. This time though, Batgirl doesn't recoil. She lets the punch land, and Nightwing is horrified. He never wanted to hurt her, but Cassandra says, her bruises, I saw them, fresh. She was hit harder, much harder. Nightwing is confused for a moment, but then realizes that hitting someone with that much force without breaking their jaw is tricky. It requires skill. It was for the recording, the bogus 911 call. He slowly realizes the intent, and his head lowers in disgust. It's Batgirl this time taking the lead, keeping Nightwing going as she asks him to continue with the simulation. They'll get through this together as a family. Nightwing now starts throwing hits, full force, simulating each jab with the intent of not breaking bones in mind, and Batgirl does her job to perfection, recoiling, flinging herself with grace around the room each time Nightwing throws a punch or a kick. Alfred watches in horror as each hit gets more and more brutal, and each hit starts to take a toll on each one of them. The brutal and merciless nature of the killer is now dawning on each one of them. Alfred slowly takes out a tape recorder from his pocket as Batgirl, Vesper, lies on the floor, dragging herself away from the killer. Nightwing, the killer, stands in the doorway. "Please, let me live," says Vesper as the 911 call's recording from that night plays. Nightwing raises his hand, simulating a gun, his head hung low. "Please, I want to live!" Vesper screams as the tape continues playing, and Batgirl keeps dragging herself away from Nightwing. Bang, 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 bang. 7 gunshots, and Vesper is no more. Batgirl curls up in a ball on the ground as Nightwing approaches her. "I guess Batman could have done this too." But Dick doesn't let her finish this sentence. He cuts her off as he says, No, he couldn't. Not the man I know." Now certain that Bruce is innocent. Bruce can be distant at times, mean, even rude to the point of pushing boundaries. But this kind of brutality, Bruce isn't, was never capable of it. And Nightwing knows this. They make their way to the Batcave, where Barbara sits in front of the Bat computer, still frantically researching, looking for any clues she can find. She turns around and sees the new sense of determination on Nightwing's face, who says, "We've spent too much time chasing our doubts." Alfred approaches Batgirl and taps her on the back. His face exudes pride as he says, "Well done." Gotham Knights number 30 and Azrael number 91. Jean-Paul Valley, aka Azrael, a Gotham City vigilante once famous for taking on the mantle of Batman, is back in the city. Known for his brutality and violent nature, Jean is suffering, his mind broken, which is why he has no control over his actions. And when he encounters Nightwing while stopping a robbery, things go south as Azrael knocks Dick out brutally and steals his bike. This is what prompts the Oracle to call in Robin, but she feels the Boy Wonder would be outmatched this time. She needs to call in the big guns, and so she does. She calls Batman. She doesn't have to persuade Bruce when he gets to know what Azrael did to Nightwing. This is the first time Batman is back, and it's to defend his family. We see Azrael is being haunted by the vision of Saint Dumas, the patron of the Order of Saint Dumas, a branch of the Knights Templar that Azrael belongs to. The saint orders Azrael to execute Batman for Vesper's murder in exchange for saving his life. Batman, Robin and Nightwing have a harrowing fight with Azrael in the Batcave, who manages to escape once he's bested. Whenever Jean removes his mask, we see him remember nothing. None of the acts he committed as Azrael. Batman finds Azrael's hideout, a castle overlooking the ocean, on a cliff. On his way there, he's contacted by Dr. Leslie Tompkins. She's been treating Jean and fears that he's about to die. She blames Bruce for Jean's current mental condition, how his pursuit of justice and how his self-destructive ideals have taken a toll on Jean, who's now haunted by hallucinations and on the verge of death. The Bat decides to do something about it as he reaches the hideout, but he doesn't know that Azrael has rigged the place to blow up at the command of Saint Dumas' hallucination. At the hideout, Jean is joined by Harold, a mute hunchback savant inventor responsible for creating most of Batman's gadgets as well as restoring Gotham to its former glory after the No Man's Land affair. Batman and Azrael fight again at the hideout, and the battle is intense, but before it can be concluded, the place blows up. Detective Comics number 772, Principal. After Azrael's fiasco, the Bat has returned to the Batcave, occasionally visiting his temporary hideout in the abandoned subway tunnel. Things have taken a turn for the worse as his former bodyguard has been sentenced for life, without parole for supposedly being Bruce's ally in Vesper's murder. She's at Blackgate Penitentiary. Visibly distraught and with her head hung low, the former Bruce Wayne bodyguard and Batman ally questions her decisions. Was she right not to give in? Was she right to refuse the plea deal? Was she right not to throw Bruce under the bus in exchange for her freedom? Bruce doesn't know it yet, but Sasha was in love with him. The year they spent together, living a lavish lifestyle during the day and fighting crime at night, was one of the best years of her life. Her days in prison are long and heavy, and she knows she's going to die in there. That's what they mean when they say, for the rest of your natural life. So, wherever the hell you are, Bruce, I pray to God that you're living, because I'm dying for you. Sasha's busy reading a book on her bed one day when an officer summons her. Someone's here to meet her. She has a visitor. Her belief is soon abandoned, however, as she sees a blonde man dressed in a crisp suit waiting for her on the other side of the glass. It isn't Bruce. The two stare at each other for a minute before the blonde guy finally picks up the phone, and so does Sasha. "I don't know you," she says, and the guy agrees, clearly having expected the hostility from her. "My name is Amherst," he says, and Sasha doesn't know it yet, but this is Robert Amherst, an NSA agent that directly reports to the president, Lex Luthor himself. He's single-handedly responsible for shooting Batman in the chest, which caused him to fall from a building and break his ribs. He promises to help Sasha get out of jail. The catch? She has to submit a written confession that implicates Bruce committed the murder. He doesn't care if Bruce did it or not. He wants Sasha to lie. Sasha's time is up, and an officer comes to get her. He's free, and you're here. You owe him nothing. Think about it. Are Amherst's last words to Sasha as she's dragged away. The coming days are a blur. Whether she's eating, exercising, fighting, or doing her prison duties, there's only one thing on Sasha's mind. Why didn't Bruce do anything for her, even until now? Why has he left her in prison? With the resources he has at his disposal as Bruce Wayne and as Batman, he could have gotten her out easily. So, why hasn't he? Then Amherst visits her again, and this time he's more aggressive than before. He recounts how Bruce is already a killer in the eyes of the public as he goes on to say, "You're not really doing anything against Bruce Wayne. Think of it as, doing something for yourself." Sasha replies it doesn't matter as she's already been convicted of murder and sentenced to life. It's then that Amherst emphasizes how Sasha's gonna spend her entire life in prison, and this sows a seed of doubt in Sasha. I need to think about it, she finally says, and Amherst smiles. He'll be back soon. Sasha is sitting in her cell when an officer throws a pencil and a few papers at her. Amherst wants her to confess, and she does. Sasha feels she's paid enough in exchange for what Bruce did for her as she pens down her confession. But it takes a toll as she curls up into a ball in the corner of her bed. She curses Bruce in her head with her eyes closed when she's suddenly jolted to reality by the clanging on her cell bars. It's an officer, and Sasha has another visitor. She hangs her head low and walks with her confession in hand to the visitor's area. As she looks up, her sorrow turns to surprise. Alfred's come to visit her. "You were his butler," says Sasha as she recognizes him, and Alfred nods. He knows Sasha was Bruce's bodyguard as he goes on to say, "A job you took very seriously from what I've learned." And Sasha replies that she tried her best. Alfred senses her doubt, her loneliness, and shares in her sorrow. Sasha fears Bruce may have forgotten her, may have used her as a scapegoat. Once Alfred learns this, he asks Sasha a final question, that if she's hiding her time in prison for herself or for Bruce. "Both," Sasha replies, and Alfred agrees. Bruce has a way to draw this kind of emotion from most people he comes in contact with. Alfred then goes on to emphasize and imply that it was Bruce's choice to share his secret with her. No one enters his confidence without his knowing, without his permission. However, it came to pass, rest assured. It's because he wished it to. Take that for, what it's worth, says the butler, and the spark of life returns in Sasha's eyes as she says, "It's worth a lot." Sadly, Sasha's time is up and she's dragged away from the visiting booth by an officer. But before she leaves, she asks Alfred if he would visit her again, and with his hand stretched out for her like a loving father, Alfred says it would be his utmost pleasure to visit her again. And the next time Amherst returns, Sasha hands him the confession. Or so he thought. He realizes why Sasha was smiling as he was handed the confession, because there's no confession on those papers. Just 3 words. Go to hell. "Do you realize what you're doing?" asks Amherst, clearly shocked, and Sasha replies, "Yeah, it's called taking a bullet." Gotham Knights number 31, Clean. Robert Amherst sits in a dark hotel room distraught as he talks to his handler over a secure phone call. He isn't happy. He knows the Bat is coming after him, especially after he shot him. His handler, on the other end of the phone, asks Amherst to disappear once the cleanup is done. The NSA agent grows horrified by each passing second. He knows he isn't getting any help from his employer. He holds his head as anxiety takes over his soul. He's supposed to be a ghost. His job is to not exist. He's the guy that executes projects no one has approved. But now, he'd messed up. Amherst's anxiety gets the best of him as he draws his handgun and listens out the locked front door. Nothing, it's just his jitters. Amherst pours himself a drink and downs it in one go, and although he feels better, he's overthinking. Overthinking as he concludes that the Bat is sent by his employer to tie up the last loose end of the lost job, Amherst himself. Unbeknownst to Amherst, Batman is back where he was shot, looking for clues, and he finds one. Amherst, however, cannot stop overthinking, spiraling as he assumes the Bat to be just an identity donned by many people to execute different missions, just like he does. Just like the shell corporations he'd created where he shot the Bat. Just like the identity he'd created, Bradford Landis. Batman has analyzed the thread he found back at the building where he was shot. It's a match, and Batman knows where he needs to go. Elsewhere in Gotham, on the outskirts of the town, goons dressed up in Kevlar and Nomex alloys are playing poker as the door to their hideout swings wide open. It's the Bat, and without a word, he kicks the 2 goons playing the game directly in the faces. With his next 2 moves, Batman incapacitates the thugs with guns as the rest circle him with various makeshift weapons in hand, crowbars, bats, rods, you name it, they're wielding it. But they haven't met the Bat, as he makes easy work of most of them. Punching and kicking ass, he plows through them. The Bat even stabs a goon in the hand with his batarang. And despite their best efforts, they're no match for the Dark Knight as he puts the rest of them to sleep using sleeping gas. As the gas envelops the entire room, Batman feels something. Someone behind him. It seems to be the gang's leader. He's bigger than the rest of them, and smarter, as he had the foresight to wear a gas mask. "What do you want?" he asks, and the Bat replies, "Amherst." The gang leader plays coy, because he's read the files on Batman. He knows the Bat doesn't kill, hasn't killed anyone yet. He, on the other hand, the leader smiles as his grip on the two rifles in his hands tighten, and Batman's had enough. They don't call him the world's greatest detective lightly. Batman goes around the room, pointing at each member of the gang, naming them, listing their injuries, their backgrounds, and most of all, their motivations. As he does this, the confidence slowly fades away from the face of the gang's leader. He realizes his mistake. He's out of his depth, he thinks, as he hangs his head low. The Continental, 16th floor, under Carlisle. He's leaving town tonight, he says, hoping the Batman will let them go. Back at the Continental, an anxious Amherst sits on his bed, now smoking, staring at his flight ticket. It's 1:28 a.m. and his flight departs at 4:37. He's waiting. Amherst gets up and walks to the window, looking outside anticipating the Bat, but Batman is standing behind him. As the NSA agent turns around, he's startled to his core. He drops his lit cigarette as he pretends to not be afraid of the Bat, his face from a moment ago clearly betraying him. He pulls out his gun and points it at Batman as he starts rambling. At first, Amherst thinks Batman's DEA, as he says, "The heroin's just a payment plan. I can give you operation specifics, but I'm tasked." Batman doesn't respond and simply stares at Amherst. The NSA agent soon realizes the Bat isn't here for the heroin, so he tries another angle. Amherst promises to disappear and never come back, and the Bat can report this to his superiors. Amherst is still thinking that Bat works for one of the government agencies. The Bat doesn't respond again, and Amherst continues spiraling as he tries to figure out a motive. He then remembers the small job he carried out the day he arrived in Gotham and says, "Hell, I don't even know the guy's name. All I did was contact this Mr. Smith, tell him what we needed and give him his fee. Jackpot." Amherst's face recoils in horror as Batman picks up by the collar of his shirt and raises him into the air. The Bat growls and asks Amherst for details, specifics, and a shaky Amherst tells him that he paid the mystery man $20 million. When asked what the mission was by the Dark Knight, Amherst tells them they requested Bruce Wayne's character assassination, and the mystery man delivered that to perfection. Batman has heard enough. He puts down Amherst and he asks him one last question. Batman knows Amherst reports to the White House, but he doesn't know who in the White House authorized this operation. Amherst grins, still assuming Batman to have been sent by the government to kill him. He eases up when he hears this question. He thinks of the Bat as another government agent, one that doesn't understand the upper hierarchy when it comes to covert operations like the one he conducts. Now gloating, the NSA agent lights a cigarette as he says, "My orders come from the top, the White House, the Commander-in-Chief." He smirks and the Bat finally stares back at him. He has plans for Amherst, plans the NSA agent won't like. Batman number 605, Courage. A storm rages on in Gotham as Batman stands in the rain, his head lowered, looking down at Vesper's gravestone as he thinks to himself, "To some degree, I must concede that my enemies have won. Bruce Wayne has been publicly destroyed and privately abandoned, and all my energies have been focused on that, on myself, while the other victims of this crime have fallen through the cracks. It should have never been this way." Staring silently at the gravestone, Bruce finally says out loud, "I'm sorry. You deserve better, Vesper." Bruce is beginning to realize the mistake he's made, how his pride has hurt so many people, how it's led to Vesper's murder, how she's turned into a simple pawn in the game of chess to bring him to his knees. Bruce has been carrying a rose all this while, and he finally bends down, placing it on the gravestone. Maybe he sheds a few tears, but it's hard to tell in the rainstorm that envelops Gotham tonight. Bruce's mind and heart are flooded with Vesper's memories, the time they spent together, their first date. Sorrow still dictates his heart, as it's not her voice or face he remembers the most, but how she made him feel when she was around. He remembers her scent, something unique to her. A mix of Quintana Valore and Chanel No. 5. Something Bruce always knew but never told her. It's what Bruce was thinking the day he found her on the floor of his manor, in a pool of her own blood, shot in the back 4 times. It was his parents' murder all over again. He'd felt the same loss. And this time he could feel Batman take over as he'd started looking for clues immediately. How Batman was taking over so he couldn't feel her death, how he couldn't even mourn her loss. Finally, one with himself, a new sense of determination takes over his face. A new Batman seems to shine through the same suit as Nightwing approaches him in the background. The Oracle, aka Barbara Gordon, has sent Nightwing. Batman has summoned them all in the Batcave. and Nightwing's here to pick him up. Two of them leave the graveyard, and after a long pause, Batman finally says, "I'm sorry that I hit you, Dick." Nightwing brushes it off, firstly because it was months ago, and most of all because it was Dick who hit him first. Batman confesses that he deserved to be hit. This is a new Batman, a new Bruce, his father, and Nightwing realizes that now. He sees how the Bat feels and confesses that it was a stupid thing to do, that hitting Batman that day only made things worse, gave the Bat another reason to walk away. Silence. Again. The Bat finally breaks the silence, offering to tell Nightwing everything he knows, and a cheeky grin takes over Nightwing's face. "Okay, wait. Let's just see how much I figured it out on my own first," says Dick as they continue driving toward the manor. Meanwhile, back at Gotham Airport, Clark Kent's parents, Martha and Jonathan Kent, look for their bag at the baggage carousel when a mysterious large man brushes them aside to grab a heavy leather bag. "I think that one's mine," he says as he walks into the men's bathroom, locking the door behind him. Pa Kent finds something odd about the man but can't quite place a finger on it yet. The bag is filled with stacks of cash as we watch the mystery man retrieve a burner phone from it. He plays an unread voicemail that tells him to stay at the Gotham Mikado Arms under the name Philip Ford. Further instructions for his mission will be waiting for him there. The man flushes the burner phone and walks out. Back at the Batcave, Alfred, Batgirl, Robin and Barbara anxiously wait for Bruce's arrival. Everyone's dealing with their anxiety in their own way. Robin and Alfred are fixing and checking Jason Todd's memorial case with the old Robin costume to ensure everything's perfect, while Batgirl is meditating at the edge of a table, her legs folded and her eyes closed, trying to calm her nerves, but Barbara isn't helping. Barbara talks a lot when she's anxious, and that's what she's doing, talking to Batgirl as she meditates. Batgirl finally gives in and opens her eyes as Barbara says, 5 months of radio silence and then just, "Barbara, this is Bruce. Can you check something for me? It was just so Bruce, you know?" "Yeah," replies Batgirl calmly, trying to be helpful and supportive to Barbara. Just then, the Batcave is filled with the sound of the Batmobile's roaring engine as the car speeds in and halts with a loud screech. Nightwing gets out first and stands with the rest of the family as Batman walks toward them. Bruce, you okay?" Barbara asks like a timid bunny as Batman removes his cowl and appears as himself, as Bruce to his family after many months. "I'm fine," says Bruce, staring at the Batman mask in his hands. He walks upstairs toward them as he thanks them all for meeting him at such a short notice. Before he can continue further, he falters for a second before confessing, I know that I'm not an easy person to know. That's all." Shock, utter shock covers the Bat family's faces. Everyone shocked at Bruce's heartfelt confession. Well, not everyone. Alfred smiles approvingly as he knew Bruce would come around. Master Bruce has finally come home. Barbara jokes, "Well, that's about the understatement of the century, I'd say." And everyone has a good laugh as Batman smiles and holds his face in slight shame. Reunited and rejuvenated, the Bat family now gets to work, finding Vesper's killer. Bruce takes the lead, saying he knows who did it, and more importantly, he knows why they did it. Bruce goes on to explain that the frame was almost perfect. Not only was he framed in the eyes of the public, but seeds had also been planted to frame him in his family's eyes. He wants to do it right this time, doesn't want to miss anything, and so he lets Dick establish the facts first. They know that someone found a way into the cave more than once. They know that the same someone broke into the security system, so they could come and go at will. Dick goes on to explain that the gadgets he found during his break-in simulation prove it. They also know for sure that the first break-in happened 6 weeks before Vesper's murder, which means someone had meticulously planned the entire murder. Barbara then joins in, adding that they also know for a fact that Vesper's notes and Bruce's personal journal was also altered, which is what made most of the Bat family doubt him initially. Batman agrees and calls it the perfect time, because he'd been coming apart at the seams since Commissioner Gordon, Barbara's father, was shot, how he'd been boxing away his feelings since then. And Lucius Fox's stroke was another blow that pushed Bruce to his limit. Someone had been breaking Bruce, one step at a time, which means all of these things were planned to break Bruce. As a man, everyone has their mouths wide open in shock. At this time, at the Gotham Mikado Arms, the mystery man from earlier checks in under the name of Philip Ford. He's handed a package that was delivered for him, which he opens in the privacy of his room. It's a tape recorder, and when played, the message says, "Previous job was accomplished completely to our satisfaction. Unfortunately, there's still one loose end that didn't work out how we'd planned, but I can't imagine you'll have much trouble taking care of it for us." The tape goes on to applaud the mystery man's abilities as smoke starts rising from a nearby bin. Inside, the photo of a blonde woman burns. It's Sasha's photo, Bruce's former bodyguard. The voice from the tape continues in the background and tells the mystery man that he can collect the rest of his payment from the Gotham railway station anytime after 3 a.m. today. Back at the Batcave, Bruce continues with his explanation. He tells the Bat family about Robert Amherst, the NSA agent, and how he hired a professional to assassinate Bruce Wayne's character, all on the orders of the president himself, Lex Luthor. Bruce has had a long-running feud with Lex, especially after Gotham recovered from being no man's land, and Wayne Enterprises' feud with LexCorp had only bruised Luthor's ego further. This leads Robin to wonder if Lex Luthor knows about Batman's real identity, but Bruce doesn't think so. It was the killer who knew Bruce's secret identity, and Batman knew who it was when Batgirl found that Vesper was subdued using a nerve strike. Things suddenly click for Cassandra at that moment. Her face goes from shock to disbelief to embarrassment within seconds. You see, Batman learned nerve strike from a particular someone, and Cassandra is all too familiar with that certain someone. Luthor's agent picked the best assassin money could buy, David Kane, says Bruce as he puts up a photo of Kane on the big screen. David Kane, Cassandra Kane's father, Batgirl's father. Although dead in the public eye, Bruce has long suspected Kane to still be active in the field. He explains, Kane was hired to destroy Bruce Wayne, but he decided to do Luthor one better. He thought he could use this opportunity to bring down the Batman as well. Bruce clutches his mask tightly in his hand, staring at it as he tells the family that this is the reason why he was framed for a crime where he'd have to protect his secret identity. How this drove him far from everyone. Tim, Dick and Cassandra look on with a smile while Barbara looks at him with concern in her eyes. And Alfred? The loyal butler and godfather had never been more proud of Bruce. Bruce further adds how he lost sight of his family, how he forgot what they meant to him, how he even looked over the murder of Vesper, an innocent woman who lost her life just so Bruce could be hurt. His words drip with sorrow and regret as he adds, I was a fool. Bruce puts on his cowl, ready to do the deed, ready to catch David Kane. He lays out the plan. Oracle will be coordinating the operation from the Batcave, while Batgirl will sit this one out for obvious reasons. When the Bat tells everyone he's going after Kane, Cassandra can't help but wonder if he knows where her father is, and Batman shakes his head. Although he doesn't know where Kane currently is, he does know where he's going to be. Back at the Gotham railway station, Kane, seemingly dressed in all leather, approaches a station locker, unaware that Oracle has an eye on him using the security cameras while Robin tails him from the rooftops. As Kane gets out of the station, Robin drops 3 smoke pellets and ambushes him with ease. But as the smoke fades away and the man uncovers his face, Robin realizes his mistake. It's not Kane, just a random person. He informs about the decoy to the Oracle over the radio, who replies, We knew it wouldn't be. Get what you can from him. Nightwing? How are you doing? Nightwing perches atop a building overlooking Robin's ambush as he spots Kane in a nearby building, looking at the scene below. His decoy was a success, but he doesn't notice Nightwing, who leaps towards the window, using a streetlight as a springboard. Or maybe he does, as we see the window is rigged with a rope, pulley and some weights, and as Nightwing crashes into the room we see the other end attached to a Gatling gun, which begins firing as soon as Nightwing hits the floor. With a quick kick, Dick has the Gatling gun pointed elsewhere as he runs after Kane. He's headed for the roof, but Kane is quick. He's gone by the time Nightwing reaches the rooftop, and now he has to rely on the Oracle for a lead on Kane. Barbara frantically checks the cameras when she finally spots Kane, gracefully jumping from roof to roof around 1,000 feet away from Nightwing's current position. Both Nightwing and Robin chase after Kane, and it's then Barbara realizes that Batgirl has left the Batcave, presumably on her way to capture Kane. Robin and Nightwing chase after Kane with all the might they can muster, hoping to catch him before Cassandra can reach them. But Kane is fast. Too fast. He leaps over a fence, takes a hard right and is about to disappear down a dark alley when suddenly he spots a shadow with eyes in front of him. The Dark Knight himself is finally here. Kane turns around, ready to leave, but Nightwing and Robin tackle him to the ground. They have a problem. This isn't Kane either. It's another decoy. What? Then where is he? Says Barbara into the microphone back at the Batcave as she senses a large presence behind her. Where else? Says Kane, dressed in all black tactical gear, all 6 foot 2 inches of muscle ready to do some damage. Barbara's eyes widen as she decides on a whim to attack him. A bad idea. Kane kicks her in the face, and with a loud thud, Barbara lands on the floor, out of her wheelchair. Kane explains he thought he was being chased by the government agents hoping to cover their tracks, but then he heard the Bat family over the radio. I mean, don't you think if I could break into this fortress that I'd be smart enough to tap into your frequency as well? Didn't that even occur to you? Screams Kane at the top of his lungs as he towers over Barbara menacingly, just like he did before killing Vesper. Kane hears wind fluttering and then a growl that says, Actually, it did. As the Bat leaps at Kane from above, the two begin trading blows instantly, each one of them using everything in their arsenal of fighting techniques. Barbara meanwhile manages to get back on the chair and inform everyone she's fine. Back in the alley we see Alfred with the Batman mask in hand. It was all a part of the plan. Batman wasn't going to fall for Kane's tricks this time. Back at the Batcave, Batman and Kane are going at it, each one of them leaping through the air, throwing kicks and punches every split second. But both of them are too good. Each one of them manages to evade every attack the other one throws at them, and it seems that there's going to be no end to this fight, until something changes. While Kane has been calm and level-headed, the sight of Kane has been building up rage inside the Batman each second. And the Bat finally gives in to this rage as he manages to use both his hands to smack Kane's head between them. The assassin groans as Batman kicks him in the face, screaming, "Why, Kane? Why? Because you think I stole your daughter? So you kill an innocent woman?" Batman bellows, fury dripping from every part of his body. With his nose bleeding, Kane lies on the ground as Batman continues demanding a reason until Kane finally tells him it's not because he stole his daughter. Kane knows he'd lost the moment she decided to join the Bat. He then goes on to explain how he didn't want to take the job until he learned it was Bruce who was being targeted. Realized the boy he trained had turned into the Batman, which made Kane test him. "How could I let you guide her? So I took the job. I didn't do it to hurt you. I did it to test you," Kane says as blood continues to drip out of his nose. Batman doesn't believe him as he holds the assassin up by his collar, and so Kane continues mocking the Bat, telling Bruce how he stripped his entire life away to show Bruce what he really was, a monster just like him, just like Kane. Kane then says how a normal man would have turned to his family for help, but because he knew Bruce to be a monster like him, he turned them away, pushed them far away. Rage intensifies inside Batman as he hears these words. He punches Kane across his face with all the power he can muster, and he doesn't stop. He throws one punch after the other, blood flying in all directions with each hit, as Cassandra slowly walks in on them, visibly distraught at the sight. Both are fathers fighting each other, one blooded and barely conscious, while the other seethes with rage. "See," says Kane, his voice trailing off, "just like me." And Batman pauses, his face still full of anger, and for a moment it seems that Kane might be the first guy the Batman murders. But then the next second he drops Kane to the floor. Batman remembers his mistakes. He's already realized it. It's what brought him back, what reunited him, and he isn't going to let Kane take that away, not for a second time. "No, I'm not like you. Not anymore," he says as he removes his cowl. He knows it's over. Cassandra finally bends down toward Kane, the look of horror still very much present in her eyes as she begs her father to fix things, to make things right. Kane slowly opens his eyes, groaning, and says to his daughter, "Sure, what difference does it make now?" The next morning, back at the White House, Lex Luthor watches the news. He isn't happy, not in the slightest. The news is reporting on the Vesper Fairchild case, and Bruce has been exonerated. Kane has turned himself in, offering irrefutable evidence of the murder to the GCPD. "Mercy, locate Agent Amherst for me, would you?" Lex coldly asks one of his aides as she informs him that they've been looking for Amherst for days, and he's nowhere to be found. He's disappeared. We see a doctor hover over a patient as he tries to wake him up. "Jones, Mr. Jones, can you hear me?" he asks, and the patient finally comes to his senses. It's Amherst in a straitjacket, restrained to his bed. "Get these things off me! I'm a government agent!" screams Amherst at the doctor. "Of course you are," says the doctor nonchalantly as he walks out of the cell, closing the heavy metal door behind him. We see Amherst has been admitted as D. Jones, which is written outside his cell. Other patients hear his cries, and they to scream as well.
Yeah, me too. Let me out,"
screams one.
"Yeah, I'm a government agent too. I'm not supposed to be here as well,"
screams another, and soon every patient housed on that floor joins in as the doctor continues walking away. It's Gotham's infamous asylum, Arkham Asylum.